Well, hi there, warm welcome. You're watching the Living Room Conclave with me, Meghna Deka, here on India Education Mission. Because here on Times Now, we take our responsibility towards the future of India very, very seriously. Because on the young shoulders of the youth lie economic revival as well as social revival of India in a post-pandemic world. Which is why on the third episode, we are going to be discussing building the leaders of tomorrow in India's universities. Joining us today, our panelists work very closely in this field. Hema Chennupathy, she is the principal of Oakridge International School in Hyderabad. Professor S. Basu, Financing and Accounting, IIM Bengaluru. As well as Professor P.B. Sharma, he is the Vice Chancellor of Amity University in Gurugram. So, Ms. Chennupathy, as per your experience that you have had in the last 1.5 years, how are the children adapting to the new digital formats of teaching, which are so very different, where they don't have one-on-one interactions with their teachers?
I think having adapted to this virtual platform, I think kudos to all the children and the teachers and all the parents out there, because it's not been easy. These are extraordinary times. These are situations which we never predicted. And of course, something that we have dealt with and we have faced with so much of courage and so much of satisfaction at the end of the day that we have been able to overcome that. As far as children and technology go, I think children are digital natives. They were born in the age of technology. So it's that much easier for them to adapt as compared to our teachers, with whom we had to do major levels of upskilling and upscaling for them to be able to conduct the classes on a virtual platform. But at the end of the day, it's all been satisfactory. It's been fantastic the way children have responded, and we all are, of course, in terms of the academic excellence and in terms of parent satisfaction, we are at a good place right now. But that does not mean that we need to rest on our laurels. I think there is still more to come in terms of our inability to predict when the pandemic will end and how the next few months are going to pan out. So we need to be constantly working on this. We need to ensure that mentally and physically the children remain safe. And in fact, not just the children, the staff as well and the parents and all those who are dealing with this pandemic need to understand that the long-term effects will be there, and we need to be very, very careful how we handle it. But I'm sure that despite this situation, we will all overcome it and we will all survive this and live to speak about it.
So, Professor Sharma, it's important for us to also look at the fact that Amity University, much before the pandemic, has been giving online degrees as well. But over the last 1 year, when we have shifted from about 20% online degrees that had happened earlier in India to a much more hybrid model of more of online degrees, how has it changed over the last 1 year?
In fact, a lot has changed during the last 1.5 years, ever since COVID-19 had knocked on our doors. For a very long time, higher education in particular and education in general was sitting in comfort zone, while the world of work and world of industry was facing tremendous amount of disruption arising out of the innovations and technological advancement. But during this period, COVID-19 lockdown, the world of education has now understood that the power of connectivity and power of technology can also do wonders in the education landscape. In the university system, we are utilizing this power of connectivity and power of networking to offer not only just online classes and online education, but connecting to the world of human excellence through our connect to worldwide luminaries here, sitting here, and bringing that advantage of great connect to the industry experts as well as the world, those who are eminent people from around the universities and R&D organizations to the university classrooms. And it is this advantage, in my opinion, has created a bigger advantage for higher education of tomorrow. Higher education is quite different than the school education, because here a strong integration with the industry and a strong integration with the world of research and innovation is absolutely necessary to drive the agenda of high quality education, not only for today, but to prepare our graduates to meet the challenges of the world of work tomorrow. Therefore, industry readiness and future readiness are the mantras for higher education. I personally believe that the advantage connectivity in post-COVID era is going to really create this great comfort and great advantage for higher education. But let me also say that there is no substitute for the joy of learning in a live classroom, and therefore, there is no substitute for joy of learning and collaborative learning, where students are sitting together across a table along with their mentors and solving complex problems through case studies and minor and major projects, going personally to the industry and seeing the joy of work over there, and then getting excited about the world of work and then engaging seriously to solving some of their problems right there. It is this which is currently missing. So I believe in future we have to create a hybrid model of learning as well as education. And this is where exactly we are engaged in Amity University here to create the classrooms of tomorrow, as well as to create an environment in which a strong connect to the industry and a strong connect to the world of research and innovation is brought to the university campuses. And through this hybrid model, we are in a position to offer much better quality of education than perhaps offered so far. And with this, I think we would be able to prepare India to receive great many students from for higher education from abroad, because India is being looked at a destination for high quality, affordable higher education by great many countries around the world. And India is sitting in that advantage. So the goldmine of opportunity that lies ahead for India, in my opinion, is to prepare the universities as universities of tomorrow, and do that right now by reshaping, redesigning the education system, as well as classrooms and labs and connectivity, and create that advantage here. That is where I think we in Amity University have taken a lead. We did not anticipate COVID-19, but we were certainly making great integration of technology and integration of industries into our education system here. And that's why we had no difficulty in switching over to online classes, online examinations, a lot of webinars, and connect to the world of people of eminence from around the world. And that is where I think the great advantage has been created in the Amity education group as a whole. Amity University, Haryana, I must not hesitate to say that during the lockdown itself, our faculty has contributed 741 quality research papers, have backed 19 higher-end projects from the funding agencies of the order of 12.5 crores of rupees, and have engaged seriously in filing patents as well as in commercialization of the IPR. So the activity of research as well as innovation has also continued uninterrupted, despite the fact that we were in a major disruption. So this gives us conviction that yes, disruptions will come and go even in future, but the universities must have a system that is agile, that can ride over the waves of such disruptions, and through continuous innovations in our education and research system, we should be in a position to offer to the world the quality of education which tomorrow's world requires. So this is exactly the context in which I believe the universities in India are also preparing. I have been the president of AIU, Association of Indian Universities, and we are exciting the imagination of the vice chancellors around the country to look at the future with tremendous amount of hope and meet the national as well as global aspirations in that respect.
So, Ms. Chennupathy, what's going to be very crucial is how we mold the child's mindset. For example, skills such as leadership. How is the child being taught leadership in a blended model or a hybrid model or even a completely online model over the last couple of years to prepare them for the future?
So leadership is, of course, something that needs to be imbibed into children. It's not something that you actually teach, but it's something that you expose them to, something that you, in terms of skills, instill in them. Be it taking on an initiative, new initiative, or maybe a community service, maybe a TED talk, maybe, being an orator or an MC at an event. These are small ways in which you can train our children. Now, despite it being in the virtual platform, these things continue. We have a lot of student-led initiatives in our schools, which help children in this platform and help them grow as individuals, teaching them to be independent, teaching them to be team players, teaching them to be working with people across the world And that has something that has given them so much of exposure and understanding of how to deal with setbacks and maybe sometimes even failures. And these are skills which make them leaders. These are skills which will help them in the future to be more creative, to be more communicative, and of course, to be more compassionate as well. So when our children are involved in TED Talks or winning the Dyna Awards for their community service, or even being part of UNICEF or MIT, we feel very proud that as a school we've given them the skills to handle these situations and speak confidently in front of world leaders who are out there to be able to express themselves as well. And that is where we know that leaders will continue to grow from our schools and then go on and become great people, citizens of this world.
So ma'am, ideally what age should the children start learning these skills such as leadership?
I think student agency and student leadership starts very young, be it with the early years as well. When children take independent decisions, where they learn to think for themselves and analyze and critically look at what they're doing on a daily basis, that is the foundation for leadership. That is where they actually pick up the skills, and that's where a teacher has to nurture them and encourage them to think like that. So I think when children take responsibility for their learning, we are creating leaders, and it can start as young as possible, in fact.
So Professor Basu, one of the aims that the national education policy has been to make India the hub of education. How do we ensure that we stop the brain drain, and how do we ensure that India also attracts students from abroad, international students who will throng to India for our high quality of education?
Okay, so let me address your question in two different, there are two parts to the question. So let me address the question first with the brain drain part, and then I'll come back to the first part of the question, which is about how do you attract foreign students to India or make India the, an education hub, a global hub for education. So let's get to the brain drain part first. So, while there has been this whole talk of brain drain, and we've had this brain drain story for, the last 40, 50, 60 years, I don't know how long. I'm not really so certain that brain drain is such a bad idea because of a number of reasons. And first and foremost of that is, if this brain drain hadn't happened, a so-called brain drain hadn't happened, if the people hadn't really gone abroad, do we have the ability to gainfully employ them in our environment, in our society, in our ecosystem, and get meaningful outcome from that? I think that's not possible, and that has never been possible. And hence the need to go out has always been there. Coming back to your first part of the question, how do you make India a global hub? I think that is where we have a lot of things to go. And unfortunately, but Indian universities, okay, within the Indian education space, I would want to divide it between the traditional Indian universities and on one hand, and the centers of learning, centers of higher learning, like the IIMs, IITs, and a lot of the newer universities that come up, like the Ashokas of the world and the Jindals of the world and things like that, which have now come up. There is a very classic divide between the two. If you look at these institutes, the IITs, IIMs, the Ashokas, and all of that, they are very tuned into what's happening at the global level, and therefore there is this ability to kind of say that, okay, what we do out here is what somebody is doing in Chicago, in Shanghai, in Melbourne, in Johannesburg. There is really no difference, and the quality of education is very, very similar. However, bulk of Indian education is still driven by Indian universities, which I unfortunately have to admit, and I'm kind of ashamed of the fact that we have failed miserably out there. Our content is outdated, our teaching methodology is outdated. The idea is not to make students learn so much, but to kind of make them cram and pass a set of exams. And that does not necessarily guarantee employability. And as a lot of Indian industry has always said, and just the global industry has said, while we do produce a very large number of graduates, not China, China is way more than us, but we do produce a very large number of graduates. A very vast majority of them, and some reports have said anywhere up to 70% of them are actually unemployable. And therefore, is that the kind of thing we want to kind of perpetuate going forward? Unless we resolve that, unless we kind of we enable our graduates to be globally competitive citizens and globally competitive part of the globally competitive workforce, we will not become a global education hub. And therefore, for us to become a global education hub, that has to change. So we need to kind of become very active and be at par with what we are doing, not stuck in history, not stuck in some kind of time warp, be much more nimble-footed, react to challenges, react to changes, try to proactively change and predict some of those changes going forward to kind of ensure that we will actually move to being a global education hub. One last point that we want to make on that context is we also need to make a change in our mindset. From a process of elimination, we should move into a process of selection. Today, if you look at the way entrance into academic institutions or other happen, it's more of a process of elimination. It is not about selecting the best. It's about ensuring that how do I keep out 99.9% of the people out and just take the 0.1% based on a given day's outcome, based on a given day's exam result and things like that. I think that argument has to change. We need to move into a more objective, and when I say objective, I'm not meaning MCQ, but an objective framework of evaluation, of continuous evaluation, such that we actually select the best and not choose by a process of elimination. And that, if we can do those things, that is what will help us move that direction of becoming a global education hub.
So, Professor Sharma, in post-pandemic world, there are going to be more travel restrictions, there are going to be more safety concerns. Several of the students may not want to go abroad from India to study. So, how do we ensure that they wean them away from these foreign universities and provide them the same quality here in India and in Indian universities?
I'm sure we are quite concerned about the foreign students coming to India. And I personally believe that we shall adopt, and we are also submitting to this cause right now, where the students from abroad will be looking at India for high quality education, and universities shall now offer much of the learning while they are there in their own country, and part of that learning will also take place here in India. And therefore, this kind of hybrid models India must now adopt, where they begin their university education in their own country and then move to the university here in India for good time. And by doing this, I think we would be able to attract and reach out to great many, because the advantage connectivity allows you to learn a lot before you reach to the university campus. This is what is happening in the universities around the world also. You can begin in India and finish in America, then why not begin in America and finish in India, or begin in Africa and finish in India, or begin in Singapore and finish in India, or begin in Malaysia, finish in India. I think all these possibilities are there. Especially in Amity University, we have set up Amity Future Academy, looking at the future of education and how we can reap great advantage for university education on the strength of connectivity by reaching out to a very large number of foreign students who are looking for quality higher education in India.
So, as a representative of one of the leading schools in India, what really is going to be the way forward, a balanced way forward post-pandemic to ensure that the cons of online teachers, such as mental health issues, seclusion, so on and so forth, that the students may be experiences, can be negated once they return to the classrooms?
So we've already discussed this. The various speakers also have brought this into the limelight, that mental health and well-being is something that we need to keenly observe and focus on, so that everyone stays understands the seriousness of the situation and also focuses on the right things. We are looking at a blended plus hybrid kind of learning going forward. And the sooner we adapt to that, the sooner we accept that, the better for all of us, students, parents, and teachers as well. Even when we do reopen schools, it's not going to be on a single platform. We are looking at flipped classrooms. We are looking at virtual classes to continue. We're looking at alternative programs which can be conducted online without children having to travel. And this is something that we have been trained on as well. And our parent company, Nod Anglia, has also brought in many programs which have helped us deal with this situation and understand that despite what the circumstances are, education does not need to stop. Upgrading skills does not need to stop. And over a period of time, we've seen that through their academic excellence and through many other platforms, the children have shown that the pandemic has not really impacted them. And in terms of well-being. I think that is such an important aspect of growth, and we have to ensure that our children focus on that, our teachers focus on that, and it is in the notice of parents that they look for these changes and understand that it's been a very, very difficult time. It's okay to be not well. It's okay to be anxious and worried about things, and it's okay to accept the fact that something is not right with you, and then learn to deal with it. So when we tell our children to accept it and move forward with it and deal with it, it gives them the confidence to face it and in fact come out of it very, very soon. So we have seen it in our schools, and we are sure that if we all look at it in the right way and address it in the right way, things will settle down and become as normal as we can be in the pandemic situation.
So, Dr. Basu, how can we put Indian universities on the global map so that we have employability as well of the Indian students, not just the skill sets which we have already offered, but ensure that they are recognized all over the world and gives them that employability edge?
So I think there are three broad points. I mean, 3 pointers are good enough, and I think we have to make effective research the cornerstone of our education policy, not just policy, education system. We need to make people oriented towards research, and research does not mean, as we see in universities today, writing something in some kind of predatory or fairly low-grade journals just because it is to meet up some norms for my promotion and all that. But that create an inquisitive bent of mind amongst the learners, and as a faculty, I'm also a learner in the first place. So basically, research from that aspect. The teaching has to kind of be relevant to the current context and nimble-footed to be able to change as we change, and because the world is changing at a very fast pace, so react to those changes, and the classroom environment also has to kind of react to that. In some sense, one might also need to predict and proactively change. And finally, the third point is, I think we should also start, and that is where I think industry should come in a big time. That there should be a much larger engagement between the industry and academia. What happens in a lot of other parts of the world, unfortunately in India, both the industry and the academia are suspicious of each other, and therefore don't really are interested or want to kind of engage in a collaborative manner. I think that has to change. I think that, I don't know who's going to take the first step. Maybe both sides, maybe one side. I mean, that's another question, but that has to kind of change, because all of that will then collectively lead us to becoming a global education hub.
Thank you so much for joining us.